Try and tell me we are not in an altcoin season right now for the cryptocurrency market. Every single day coming on and seeing multiple coins pump over 20% day after day here for the last week, all at the same time while actually seeing the Bitcoin dominance break down in very aggressive fashion, all while officially seeing XRP actually break out into a new all-time high. And at the same time, we're actually seeing Bitcoin stall out in a moment like this, all while the total market cap of crypto, excluding Bitcoin here, is battling up against those very final retracement levels. So if you haven't guessed, today's video is going to be about the altcoin market. We're going to deep dive into a lot of altcoins here. We're going to have a look at how XRP's played out and how it's just absolutely rocketed to the upside, and how this is exactly what we've spoken about and what you want to see in final expansion phases of markets. And as exciting as this is for XRP, today we're actually going to spend more time having a look at coins that I believe are still undervalued, are still at the top of their accumulation ranges, and we could start to see some breakouts on these coins and potentially see them head to new all-time highs, just like we've seen with XRP here in the last 24 hours. So lots to jump into today, guys. Let's get into it. So having a look at things on a bigger picture here, we can have a look at the total market cap of all of crypto, and we can actually see that total has just broken out into a new all-time high in the last 2 days here, officially igniting the start of a bull market for the entire cryptocurrency market. On top of all of that, we've seen XRP shoot out and set a new all-time high, which is exactly what we touched on in earlier videos. And what you can see here is that on the lower time frames here, there really hasn't been any pullbacks or corrections for XRP. We simply went through this accumulation range here below this purple zone, and then once we did break from this accumulation range, there was a little bit of grinding to the upside, and then XRP has just simply shot straight back to its old all-time high and actually setting new highs in the last 8 hours. And there were no pullbacks, no real correction zones or entries to actually get in here on XRP. And a lot of the time I've been spending on the charts recently is having a look at a lot of coins that have performed similar structures to the way XRP's actually played out, but are still at these early stages here. We actually haven't seen any of these breakouts. And today's video is actually going to be focusing on coins that I am bullish on and see a lot of upside potential, but are still in these accumulation ranges and actually just breaking out of them now in the last 8 hours, like Chainlink here, for example. And that the reason I'm bullish on coins like Chainlink, and I could potentially start to see this price chart mirror the XRP price chart, is because what we are seeing is the Bitcoin dominance actually break down here quite aggressively. And as of the last 4 hours, we've actually seen it break down below the low set back here in mid-May. And I believe what we're seeing here now is the 2025 alt season. And that last Thursday when all of this kicked off, that was the start of the alt season. And right now what we are seeing is coins like XRP that have completely front run this and have pushed through their accumulation ranges, grinded to the upside, and now broke out into new all-time highs. And while all of this is happening, what we're seeing is Bitcoin actually chill out here and grind sideways. So just to touch on Bitcoin briefly, as I don't think it's that important, but we are still looking for how Bitcoin's price structure could play out as it has broken out from a new all-time high. And what I could see on Bitcoin is a small little ABC correction here, finding support around 114. Otherwise, if we don't get that, I do think it'll just continue to grind to the upside before then pushing for a final parabola, which is similar to the way things actually played out on gold here. Once we've seen gold actually break out from its all-time high and this accumulation range, what we started to see after a period of slight correction was this final parabola where things just go up quite aggressively and you see a clear 5-wave move to the upside here. And what I will be looking for on Bitcoin is that very clear and similar 5-wave move to the upside that ends up finishing off Bitcoin. And I think that should take it to roughly 150,000. But just like how things played out on gold here, after we'd had broken out from an all-time high, had a correction, then went in for that final parabola, that final parabolic expansion here, and that ended up being the top for gold. I think Bitcoin is going to go in and perform a similar parabola move here, where we do see that final ending stage for Bitcoin, and that in that moment we will see a lot of the altcoins run. However, I think before that happens, there could just be one more little correction here for Bitcoin, or we could just continue to grind up and then shoot for that parabola. Either way, the most important thing we're seeing here is the Bitcoin dominance actually breaking down, breaking from its range and supports and setting new lows here, all while Bitcoin is actually out into a new all-time high. So the reason we're touching on this is because we need to understand that in these certain and specific market dynamics where you actually start to see the dominance go down and Bitcoin actually out into a new all-time high, this is essentially what we call an alt season in crypto. When Bitcoin's out into a new all-time high and setting up for that final parabolic move, and we actually start to see this dominance break down. And we have examples of coins like XRP, for example, which have broken out of their ranges here, set new all-time highs, and are front runners in this 2025 alt season. So what I'm looking for here in crypto is coins that are still at similar stages that XRP was at before actually breaking out to the upside here, as I do believe XRP is simply gone here. However, as far as pullbacks and good entry zones, I don't really see any. But what has my attention is coins that are performing similar. And this is where we come to Chainlink. The first coin on my radar, which, similar to XRP, went through an accumulation zone after setting its high. And now what we're seeing in the last 8 hours is it's actually breaking out of these accumulation zones and could be at those potential starting stages here, similar to the way XRP performed in this moment before it actually ripped straight back to its old all-time high. Which, if Chainlink was to perform like XRP in a moment like this, we could see a 71% price increase on Chainlink very fast, similar to the way things played out on XRP, where it took less than a week for XRP to actually shoot from this breakout zone all the way up to the top of its range and actually set new all-time highs. Now, another coin on my radar, which has actually shot a little bit higher in the last 8 hours here and actually broken out from its accumulation range, is HBAR. And what you can see here on HBAR is that once it had broken out from this previous support level, which then found resistance under for the last couple months, we have seen HBAR backtest this zone and actually break out. So this is another coin that's on my radar that I'm currently trading right now, which we have just seen break out in the last 8 hours, which again I think will perform moves similar to the way XRP did once broken out from this zone, and similar to what Chainlink could do once it does break out from this zone, similar to the way HBAR is right now. Another coin that has a great setup here for me is also Dogecoin, which you can see is still quite low in this accumulation range, still hasn't made it back to these highs, but on lower time frames here, we are starting to see Doge actually break trend here, break out from this resistance line, which has been fighting under since early June, and now shooting to the upside in the last 4 hours, approaching the top of that range, similar to where HBAR and Chainlink have just broken out from. And just one final coin here, because I'm trying to paint a picture of what I'm seeing here across the market and trying to also explain how these market dynamics works and why some coins like XRP are pumping early. However, other coins like Solana here, for example, haven't really caught a bid. But overall, what we're seeing is similar structures on all of these coins. So we'll just quickly have a look at Solana. And what you can see is that Solana is also similar to the way Doge is actually still approaching that resistance. Hasn't made it back to that level yet, but still a really strong coin. And we should see coins like this shoot to new all-time highs this cycle and expand from there. However, what I'm really trying to show here is that if we have a look at coins like Solana, or we have a look at coins that are a little bit further progressed and have developed out of this range and are a little bit further ahead, like Chainlink, for example, or if we go back and have a look at XRP, which has smashed through this range and actually set new all-time highs, what you'll start to see is that a lot of these coins have similar setups, have similar dynamics, have very similar accumulation ranges here, but they're at different stages of the cycle. And it doesn't mean that the coins that haven't pumped yet won't pump. It just means that at some point there will be a rotation from coins like XRP, which are performing really well right now, to coins like Chainlink and coins like Solana and Doge, which we've touched on. However, a lot of these coins are just at different stages in this cycle, but structurally are all performing and acting quite similar. And even if we have a look at coins that have been more bullish here so far this cycle, like XLM, for example, which we could see has broken out from that range, shot to the upside here, is consolidating a little bit, but is still quite a bit away from its all-time high. You can see that the accumulation range is the exact same and the structures are all the same as previous charts. However, this coin has shot through and is at a unique stage because it's a little bit higher than coins like Chainlink, for example, which are just breaking out from that range now. However, it isn't as high as coins like XRP, which have actually shot through and taken out their all-time highs. However, I hope you can see that a lot of these coins are at different stages but performing similar structures. So as far as the altcoins go, there are still plenty of opportunities in this market where coins haven't run yet but are setting up the exact same way as coins that have already run, which is exactly like Bitcoin here, which we actually seen break out into a new all-time high before we started to see any other coins actually push higher. And now we're actually seeing the second coin here, which is XRP, actually break out and set its new all-time highs, performing similar structures. However, there are still plenty of coins which we haven't seen that happen yet, and at some point we should start to see a rotation like we're seeing the rotation out of Bitcoin. We should eventually start to see a rotation out of other bigger caps like XRP when they'll start to slow down in this run, and we should start to see coins like Chainlink, Solana, even Sui here, which is a coin I've been bullish on for quite a while, is still just sitting at the top of this range and waiting for its breakout. And if we actually overlap Chainlink, for example, over XLM, what we'll start to see here is that these accumulation structures are very, very similar. Even when the tops and the peaks came in, you can see on the bottom of the screen here on Stellar where that vertical line is, these peaks are at the exact same time here. and that the bottoms came in at the exact same time, and these lower lows actually came in at the exact same time, except Chainlink is still just here at the top of its range, and Stellar, for example, has shot out, and pushed much higher. And if we actually overlay XRP here instead of XLM, what you'll see is that even the setup with XRP is quite the same, except XRP has shot much higher and is sitting up here in comparison. However, structurally, all the coins look quite similar. And that typically what we see in an alt season, like I believe we are in right now, is that some coins will run first, and then later on in the cycle, you'll start to see coins that haven't performed eventually pull a catch up and actually catch up to those coins and break out into new all-time highs. But I think the star of the show today is XRP actually breaking out, setting a new all-time high, and actually being one of the early runners in this market. And to think just 10 days ago in last week's video on Tuesday, when we were talking about XRP's price down here at the $2.30, that once this thing gets going, that there aren't going to be any real zones for pullbacks or corrections, and that any minor dips you get here should be bought. And what we've started to see is that exact same thing play out, and there really hasn't been any good corrections or dips to buy and actually load up on XRP here. There hasn't been any back tests of range highs, fell short here. And that what we're seeing here is a very, very bullish market. And the only time we actually see coins perform this bullish and this aggressive is in final expansion stages, which I do believe we are in for Bitcoin. Which again, tying back to Monday's video, I do believe that the countdown timer of roughly 30 to 60 days did start last week, and that this cycle should be done and wrapped up come early September. And that right now what we're starting to see is exactly what you want to see at the start of an alt season. However, one thing to keep in mind, these things don't last long. Even if we go back and have a look at November, when we've seen XRP's price shoot up 500%, and we have a look at the Bitcoin dominance here, you'll see that this only lasted 13 days where Bitcoin dominance was actually dropping. And that pump for XRP only lasted 21 days. And then even if we go back to 2021 here and have a look at the last alt season that played out for the cryptocurrency market, you can see the initial phase of this breakdown of the Bitcoin dominance lasted roughly 40 days. And then the final breakdown here, which ended up actually being the true alt season for the cryptocurrency market, only lasted another 50 days. Meaning that in the space of less than 2 months, this could all be wrapped up and done. And that right now, I do believe we are potentially in a stage like this here, where we have seen the initial break in the Bitcoin dominance fall back to supports. And that the next break for the Bitcoin dominance will start a potential 30 to 40 day timer before all of this is done. And I think that should all be done by September. And if we actually have a look at the Bitcoin dominance today, what we'll see is that we have broken down to those support levels, and that if Bitcoin dominance is to chill out here for a little bit and then go for that final break, that I can't see this taking any longer than 60 days to play out, which takes us to about mid-September here. So really exciting stuff. Trying to keep emotions under control here and not get too hyped up. It's awesome seeing new all-time highs for XRP, especially after months down in these lows here, talking about how we were going to buy and accumulate and trade this chart. Even if we have a look back just to the 23rd of June here, when I made this post on X calling for that $1.90 bottom, you can see that in less than 1 month back here on the 23rd of June, you can see that we've actually shot straight back up. And now in the course of just from the 23rd of June to today on the 18th of July, we're actually in new all-time highs for XRP, and that this final parabola and expansion phase is the quickest and most aggressive, and it could all be wrapped up in less than 3 weeks. However, the point of this video isn't to talk about XRP, as I believe that most of the work that we did in these times down here and actually accumulating was the most important time to be focused on XRP. And what we should be focusing on right now, assuming that we accumulated enough XRP in these lows, is the coins that actually haven't run yet, actually haven't broken out from these ranges, and are the biggest risk to reward opportunities that we can actually see in the cryptocurrency market. And I do believe that is coins like Link, HBAR, which has actually just broken from that range, even ADA here, which we can see is actually approaching that resistance level, or even coins that haven't made it that far yet back to their old resistance levels, like Doge, for example. And then what we should see, if this is a true alt season, is actually a lot of these coins here actually break out and set new all-time highs, similar to the way XRP just has done in the last 8 hours. So guys, very exciting time here in the cryptocurrency market. This is the expansion phase. This is the excitement phase. This is where all the money is made. However, one thing you must always remember is that these zones do not last long, and that the majority of price action in the market is actually quite boring and sideways and corrective, and that these expansion phases only last months, if not weeks. And that what we're seeing here, as you can see in the last 24 hours, we're seeing multiple coins up 20% here. You can see that on the weekly here, a lot of these coins are up over 20%, even XRP up 40% on the week here. This is exactly what you want to see in these expansion phases. And right now it's just about keeping emotions under control. I'm not trying to long and accumulate coins that have already broken out into new all-time highs like XRP. The time for that was back in the lows in these accumulation ranges when no one was talking about those coins yet. However, I do believe this is the 2025 alt season that a lot of people have been waiting for, and right now we are living in the moment. But not forgetting that once all of this is done and over, it's most likely we head into a multi-year bear market, just like we've done multiple times in the past after explosive alt seasons like we're starting to see now. And that if this continues, you should always remember and keep it in the back of your mind that on the way up, it's okay to pay yourself, it's okay to take profits. Don't feel like you're going to miss out if you sell too soon. No one's ever lost by taking profits. But as far as profit taking goes, we'll touch on that in further weeks, as I still think there is quite a while to go for this. And right now we are still in the end of the first week of the 2025 alt season. But all in all, very exciting time for crypto. Love seeing the total market cap actually break out into a new all-time high. Love seeing XRP out into a new all-time high. All while the Bitcoin dominance is breaking down and actually mirroring the 2021 alt season. So if you guys are new here, feel free to subscribe to the channel, leave a like on the video. If you have any questions or any coins you want me to have a look at and do some charting on, drop them down in the comments section below. I'll be back on Monday to follow up on what I'm seeing here and to touch on if we're still starting to see everything that we want to see continue to play out and actually setting up for that zone where we should start to eventually take profits and cash out. However, this is the end of week 1 2025 alt season, and it's so awesome to actually just be here, enjoy these new highs, but fully understand that these expansion phases don't last long, and that even if we have a look back to XRP in 2021, once it had broken out from its all-time high, it topped in 9 days. If we have a look at the earlier part of the cycle, once XRP had broken out from a new all-time high, it had topped in 4 days. If we have a look back to 2017, once XRP had actually broken out from that all-time high, you can see that it topped in 23 days. So these expansion phases don't last long. However, they are where all the money is made in crypto. And right now, we are breaking out of all-time highs for XRP. So I'll see you guys on Monday. Have a good weekend. Hope you're all making plenty of money out there and enjoying the start of no sleep season. Have a good one.